The studio is cold, not temperature cold, emotionally cold. The kind of silence that comes when something sacred has just been broken open in front of people who didn't ask to see it. Jackson Browne sits at the piano, head down, hands still resting on the keys. He hasn't moved in maybe 30 seconds. The engineer in the booth doesn't touch the faders. No one speaks. Outside, Los Angeles is bright and loud, but in here the air feels like it's holding its breath. It's 1974. Browne is not yet 30, but his face carries weight. His last album did well. Critics love him. He's respected. But respect doesn't mean safety. In this industry, you can be loved one year and forgotten the next. And what he just played, what he just recorded, crosses a line he's never crossed before. Not in public, not on tape, not with witnesses. The demo reel is still spinning. 7 songs, maybe 8. No one's counted. They weren't supposed to be heard. They were supposed to be sketches, private thoughts, things you work out alone before you decide what's safe to release. But Browne played them all the way through, and now they exist. Now they're real. And everyone in the room knows this changes things. The songs aren't angry. That would be easier. Anger you can dismiss, anger you can say is just emotion talking. But these songs are calm, detailed, specific. They name feelings that most people spend their whole lives trying not to name. Guilt, betrayal, the kind of love that doesn't fix you. It just makes you more aware of how broken you already were. And worse, the songs implicate people, not by name, but close enough. Close enough that anyone paying attention will know exactly who he's talking about. Close enough that doors will close, calls won't get returned, friendships will end. One of the songs is about a woman, not a fantasy, a real woman, someone people know. Someone whose life is already complicated, already fragile. The song doesn't glorify her. It doesn't villainize her. It just tells the truth about what happened between them, and the truth is messy and human and painful, and it makes both of them look small. The kind of small you can't come back from if the wrong people hear it. Another song is about a friend, a collaborator, someone Browne has worked with for years. The song doesn't accuse him of anything criminal. It just reveals a moment, a conversation, a choice that was made in private, a choice that hurt, a choice that Browne has carried alone until now. And the song asks a question, quietly, without hostility. Why did you do that? Why did you let me believe something that wasn't true? There's no answer in the song, just the question, and that's what makes it dangerous. Because once the question is out there, once it's on tape, once it's heard, everyone who knows both of them will start asking it too. They'll take sides, they'll rewrite history, they'll stop trusting each other. The engineer finally moves. He rewinds the tape, not all the way, just back to the beginning of the last song. He doesn't ask if Browne wants to hear it again. He just assumes. Or maybe he's stalling. Maybe he doesn't know what to say. The song plays again. It's slower than the others, quieter. Browne's voice is almost a whisper. The piano barely moves. The lyric is simple, too simple. It's about a child, not his child. A child he met once, briefly, whose eyes stayed with him. The song doesn't explain why. It doesn't build to a message. It just sits with the image. A child looking at him. A child who didn't know him, didn't care about his music, didn't need anything from him. And for some reason, that look undid him. The song ends. The tape stops. The engineer looks through the glass. Browne is still sitting there, hands on the keys, not playing. The engineer speaks, finally. His voice is careful. You really gonna keep that? Browne doesn't answer right away. He's thinking, or maybe he's not thinking. Maybe he's just feeling the weight of what he's done. Because keeping it means risk. Keeping it means exposure. Keeping it means people he loves will hear things he's never said to their faces. Keeping it means the industry will talk. Keeping it means some doors will close. But erasing it means something else. Erasing it means pretending the feelings aren't real. Erasing it means going back to the version of himself that everyone's comfortable with. The thoughtful guy, the sensitive guy, The guy who writes pretty songs about longing and never gets too specific. The guy who's safe. He lifts his hands off the keys. He turns around. He looks at the engineer. "I don't know yet," he says. The next day, word gets out. Not the songs, not the content, just the fact that something happened, that Browne recorded something, that it's sitting in a studio somewhere, unfinished, unmastered, unmarked. People start calling. A producer who's worked with him before, a label executive, a friend who heard from someone else who heard from the engineer. They all want the same thing. They want to hear it, or they want to make sure no one else hears it. One of the calls comes from someone Browne trusts, someone who's been in the business longer, someone who's seen careers rise and fall over less. This person doesn't ask what's on the tape, he just says, "Whatever it is, think about who it's gonna hurt before you decide." Browne listens. He doesn't argue. He knows the advice is coming from a good place, but the advice assumes something. It assumes that protecting people is always the right thing to do. It assumes that silence is neutral, that keeping secrets doesn't have a cost. But Browne has learned something. He's learned that silence has a body count too, not a loud one, not a visible one, but a real one. The things you don't say build up. They turn into distance, into numbness, into a version of yourself that can smile and perform and function, but doesn't feel real anymore. And at some point, you start wondering if the person everyone loves is actually you, or just a shape you've learned to hold. He hangs up the phone. He goes back to the studio. The tape is still there. No one's touched it. He plays it again, all the way through. This time he doesn't stop. He doesn't rewind. He just listens. And he notices something. The songs aren't cruel. They're not written to wound. They're written to understand, to make sense of things that didn't make sense when they happened, to find language for feelings that didn't have language before. But understanding doesn't mean safety. Understanding can be the most dangerous thing, because once you understand something, once you name it clearly, you can't pretend it didn't happen. You can't go back to the comfortable version of the story. You have to live with the truth, and so does everyone else. Another call comes. This one is different. It's from the woman, the one in the song. She's heard, not the song itself, but she's heard that there's a song, that it's about her, that people are talking. Her voice is quiet, not angry, just tired. She says, "I don't know what you said, but I need you to think about what happens to me if people hear it." Browne closes his eyes. He hadn't thought about that, not fully. He'd thought about his own risk, his own exposure, but he hadn't imagined what it would be like for her, to have her life, her choices, her pain, turned into someone else's art, to have people she's never met form opinions about her based on a song, to lose control of her own story. He tells her he won't release it, not now, maybe not ever. She thanks him. The call ends. He sits there in the silence. He feels relieved, but he also feels something else, a kind of heaviness, because the songs are still true. The feelings are still real. And now they're just going to stay inside him, unspoken, unshared, unresolved. He goes back to the studio one more time. He tells the engineer to box the tape, to label it, to put it somewhere safe. Not destroyed, just locked away. The engineer does what he's told. He doesn't ask why. He seals the box. He writes the date on it. 1974. He puts it on a shelf in the back behind other tapes, other sessions, other things that didn't make it to the world. Browne leaves. He goes home. He sits at his piano. He starts writing something new, something softer, something that doesn't name anyone, something that can be about anyone, something safe. But late at night, when the house is quiet, he thinks about the tape. He thinks about the songs. He thinks about the truth that's sitting in a box, sealed, silent, waiting. And he wonders if he made the right choice, if protecting people was really kindness or just fear, if art is supposed to be honest or if honesty is just another word for harm. Years pass. The tape stays in the box. Browne keeps writing. He keeps performing. He has success. He has failures. He has moments where people say his new work is too safe, too polished, too careful. And he doesn't argue. Because they're right. Something changed after 1974. Something closed. Not loudly, not visibly. But it closed. One day, decades later, someone finds the tape. Not a journalist, not a fan. Just someone cleaning out an old storage space. They don't know what it is. They ask around. Eventually, it gets back to Browne. He's older now. His face has changed. His voice has deepened. But when he hears that the tape has been found, something in him tightens. He listens to it again, alone. In a different studio, in a different city, in a different life. The songs sound different now. Not because they've changed, but because he has. The woman in the song, he hasn't spoken to her in years. The friend, they reconciled eventually, but it was never the same. The child, he doesn't even remember the moment anymore, not clearly. But the song remembers. The song holds it. He realizes something. The songs weren't dangerous because they were cruel. They were dangerous because they were true. And truth, when it's specific, when it's personal, when it's unguarded, doesn't fit neatly into the world. It disrupts, it complicates, it asks people to hold more than one feeling at the same time. And most people don't want to do that. Most people want stories that make sense, that have clear sides, that let them feel righteous or safe or certain. But life isn't like that. Life is messy. Life is contradictory. Life is loving someone and being hurt by them at the same time. Life is making a choice that's right for one person and wrong for another. Life is carrying things you can't say out loud because saying them out loud would break something you're not ready to break. Browne doesn't release the tape. Even now, even with the distance of time, he doesn't release it. Not because he's afraid anymore, but because he understands something he didn't understand in 1974. He understands that some things aren't meant to be shared. Not because they're shameful, but because they're too specific, too human, too tied to real people who didn't ask to be part of someone else's art. He puts the tape back in the box. He seals it again. He doesn't destroy it. He just lets it exist. As a reminder, as a record, as proof that he felt something real once and had the courage to name it, even if he never had the courage to release it. And maybe that's enough. Maybe the act of creating the songs was the point. Maybe putting the feelings into form, into language, into sound was the release. Maybe the audience was never supposed to be the world. Maybe the audience was just him. Years later, someone asks him about it, a younger musician, someone who's heard rumors, someone who wants to know what was on the tape, what was so dangerous, what would have destroyed careers. Browne smiles. It's a sad smile. A knowing smile. He says it wasn't dangerous because it was extreme. It was dangerous because it was honest. The younger musician waits for more. But Browne doesn't say anything else, because there's nothing else to say. The songs are still in the box. The people in the songs have lived their lives. The moments have passed. The choices have been made. And the tape sits in the dark, on a shelf in a storage room somewhere, holding a version of the truth that the world never got to hear. Not because it wasn't real, but because sometimes the realest things are the ones we choose to keep to ourselves.